What's up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and today I'm going to be taking you through my tornado shot build. There's going to be a ton that I'm going to be covering in this video. It's just so much. There's a lot of different options, and I want to cover everything. And the reason why is because every different option has advantages, disadvantages. Obviously, I have my build set up in the way that I like it the most. So you could just copy mine. Some of the options though in my build are just like super crazy expensive. So for those slots that I have set up super crazy expensive, I have other options that will make the build work so that you can do it cheaply. Like instead of a 50 EX chest, I can tell you how to make one for 5. Instead of, probably 50 EX gloves, you can make them for 2 or 3. So I've got a lot of options for that stuff, and this is going to be a fairly long video, but if you're planning on making this build outside of just basically copying what I have to do, which I will include POV of how my build is right now. Obviously I'm not going to craft all of this gear for myself. I had done all of the crafting videos up to this point. I haven't released content recently because or been on stream because I had catastrophic computer failure and just everything is gone. So I'm back now, and I'm going to be redoing all of it. My plan had been I wanted to do the build guide and then be able to release everything all at once. So it's quite a collection of videos I lost, but one of my friends, I'm going to craft some gear for him, so I'll get to remake all of the gear. So there will be videos coming out. I plan on doing that very soon, probably starting today, and then hopefully finish up the basic stuff tomorrow. So there will be a lot of content coming out on this so that you can figure it all out. But I want to jump into this. This is, as I said, going to be a fairly long video because there's a lot to cover, and I would suggest sticking around unless you already know everything you need to know about this build. We're going to go over pretty much everything that I tried, best options versus, top few options is kind of what we're going to do. So we have, actually I don't know where one is. All right, so the Black Sun Crest or the Asynthus Chant are going to be one of the two options that you're going to want to decide for a helm. Let's see. Should have just a regular one. So the advantage to the Black Sun Crest is that it just gives you a ton of attributes. Obviously we're going to be using the Omniscience, so with that, the percentage increase, which can go up to 45% increased attributes, is obviously a really big attribute bonus. The thing is this is probably the easiest do nothing way to just get a lot of attributes. It makes it easy to hit max resistances and stuff like that. However, that's all this helm really offers. You get +1 to socket gems. That's not too bad, but realistically it's not a ton. You get a little bit of armor, a little bit of evasion, and that's about it. So I didn't choose to do that. The reason why I didn't choose to do that is because Asynthus Chant just has really good synergy in this build. It has really good synergy in our passive tree, and I'll go over the advantages to that and the reason why I went for Asynthus. The thing is my build is set up just for a speed mapper. Will it crush bosses? Absolutely. It will absolutely just melt them like butter. Map bosses just are basically insta dead like 99% of the time. Sometimes you have like when you're running like 150 base quantity and they're like 200 quantity map. Sometimes they take like 2 seconds. But yeah, they die really fast regardless. Me saying it's a speed mapper doesn't mean it doesn't have boss DPS. My single hit DPS is like 6 million something, and I'm firing with this setup. It final splits 40 arrows, so it goes 10, 20, 40, so 70 arrows with 4 secondary projectiles, so 280 projectiles a shot. So yeah, you can get it. It's a lot of damage. I'm firing 6.7 attacks per second, so crazy attack speed, ton of damage, and it's really fast the way I have it set up. I think I have 170 or 190% movement speed. 171% movement speed. So I don't have onslaught on right now, and my damage is actually higher than this because it won't calculate the damage from my brute restraint. Realistically, my build's pretty min-maxed. You know, like over 700 PDPS bow on a fastest type base with 6.9 crit and stuff like that. So realistically, you can get close to what I have a lot cheaper. Obviously, there's like those small things when we're upgrading from one piece of gear. You know, it costs a lot to get that little bit of extra. Like my helm, obviously, you know, if you can get one and you can afford it, it would be really good to, you know, have an extra power charge or to have +2 to socketed gems, because all the gems in it are cold gems. But let's talk about the link and the reason why I choose Asynthus Chant. It has the base up to 15% attack speed. It has the 5% movement speed. Two good things. The mana regen is also going to help us once you start getting just like some levels into the build, though, that the mana regen really isn't going to help you that much. Honestly, like, we're not stacking mana regen. We absolutely have to have mana on hit and mana and life leech. Those two things are really important, but which we pick up pretty easily. I only needed 1 point into life and mana, and then our main cluster jewel is going to give us life leech and mana leech. But let's talk about the reason why Asynthus Chant is so strong in this build. First of all, we have curses on enemies. Curses on enemies in your chilling area have 15% increased effect. We're going to be running 2 curses. Even if you don't have the corrupted implicit additional curse, you'll still be able to get it just by anointing Whispers of Doom. That will give you your second curse. So then you'll be using Frostbite, and then you'll be using a mark, which counts towards your curse max. So you're going to be using 2 curses. So when they're on chilling zones, they take 15% increased damage. When you have 46%, that's 6, 7.5, like 8% on the Frostbite, and then you get another. Where is it? Then on this, you get another 4.55, like almost 6% more on that. So that's like 14% for that, and we get that from Creeping Frost. This creates the chilling areas, and then it spreads. The cool thing is, something you definitely want to do for this is you want to have negative non-channeling casting cost, because it makes it so that our everything besides our curses and our main attack skill are going to be free. So that stuff's going to just be casting constantly, and those are higher costs. But as long, you know, I'm running on 86 mana, but because we have so many projectiles coming out in each shot, and we get 2 mana on each shot, you know, my casting cost of my attack is 12. So if I hit 6 targets, you know, that's all my mana back, which obviously you're going to hit more than 6 times. Even on single target, you're hitting more than that per shot. So yeah, that's a really big damage buff. You're talking about like 14% like minimum increase to the damage that they take. So that's really good. That's a really good node, and that's 1 slot, which is basically increasing your total damage between, like, you know, like 12 to 14%, we'll call it. That's really big. Then we also have the Hydrosphere. So the Hydrosphere is really nice because it's going to apply lightning and cold exposure, and then it's also going to reflect our shocks and freezes. So that's really good. -10 to the resistances, and then it's also reflecting shocks and freezes. That's really strong. The reason why it's really strong is because we are both shocking and freezing. We have chance to freeze increased as a % chance just from the Frostbite. I'm able to freeze bosses because you attack so fast. It's % chance to freeze, large enough hits, stuff like that. I can normally perma-freeze most things that I don't insta-kill. The way that you can get shock guaranteed on your build is by using this elemental mastery. Gain 10% of physical damage as extra damage of a random element. There's 3 elements. That means 1 out of every 3 shots is going to be applying lightning damage. The minimum shock value that I am getting is 7%. That's the lowest I see. So that's a 7% increase to damage on top of the average damage increase that the 10% physical as extra damage of a random element gives is like about 4% more damage, or 4% increased total damage. So it's a really good node, and the stuff leading up to it's pretty good. It's a good per point total value, and then when you add on top of that, they take minimum 7% increased damage from your total damage. That winds up being a really good combo there too. So Hydrosphere, with that combination, you're getting -10 the exposure, and you're getting the just kind of like more reflection of shocks and freezes. Also, there is a chance to chain off of that, although now that's like really minuscule because just how the orb works now. They kind of change it so it's like on a 1 second cooldown or something like that in between hits. So that got nerfed a little bit, but it's still really strong in this build. Bone Chill. This is just going to increase that. It's supporting our orb. It's supporting all this stuff. So, well, Hydrosphere. I guess Hydrosphere's 2% mana cost, but it's supporting that. So that's good. That's why I have it set up this way. You could take and you could pull out Bone Chill. You could have it casting both your mark and your curse. The reason why I wouldn't do that is because this is a separate thing that will go ahead and do it. It's going to trigger on hitting rare, unique, which that's just going to specifically target the rares and the uniques, which I think is a lot better, because when you're like going through packs, it's better to have it targeting a specific thing than the thing that you want to target than it just targeting something randomly, because it will only hold on to one target because it's a mark. So I actually really like this setup. You do lose 15% at level 21. But that's not really a big deal. We've got 75% increase mark on our in our tree, and then also we have increased effective marks, and then Culling Strike unmarked, which makes it more important, that it's hitting on the stuff that we want it to be on. This right here, I just wanted to note on this. This can give you, like, if you're going to be doing more like boss fighting, where you need frenzy charge generation, this is just the easiest place to pick it up. 10% chance to gain frenzy charge when you hit your marked enemy. This is just nice for bossing. Obviously, instantly when you hit a boss, you're going to mark it, and then a 10% chance per hit when you're shooting so many projectiles. That's going to fill up those frenzy charges real fast. Definitely sustain them. We don't have to really worry about frenzy charge generation in maps, because Blood Rage, every time you kill an enemy, you're gaining a frenzy charge, so you'll never run out of frenzy charges running around in the maps, and it should fill up instantaneously the second you turn it on and shoot. So we don't have to worry about that. So the Synthus Chant basically is just giving me a lot of utility, and it makes it so I don't have to cast any of these things. If I were using the Black Sun Crest, could I still use these things? Technically, yes. Like, I could set up and manual cast those things, but realistically, I would never use that. The reason why is because I would lose... well, first of all, I'm going to kill everything the way that I have it set up now so fast that there's no reason why I would ever stop and use that stuff if I was having to manual cast it. It just wouldn't make any sense. Like, am I going to cast Hydrosphere and a curse, and it's just not going to happen. So the difference between the two, it's a pretty big difference. The advantage of the Black Sun Crest, like I said, is you're going to cap out on resistances, and you're going to have more pen from your omniscience. The thing is, though, as the goal is I believe 200% to negative resistances, because it's capped. You can't take them below a negative 100%, is I believe what they did at the beginning of this league. Anyways, the combination of mark plus the auto casting curse is just so much of a hit. And then also, if you were to try to add like curse on hit, which would be the only way to really get it, would be if you were to go for it on a ring. The issue with that is you're trying to get really big attributes on your ring. So like the advantage to the Black Crest, if you try to go ahead and add the curse on hit, is that you already have more attributes because of that, but then you're going to be sacrificing attributes, or basically being in a situation where it's going to be pretty much near impossible to create that type of ring, or it's just going to be insanely expensive. It's just not going to be as good because you're talking about the base curse effect plus up to 32% increased effect of the base curse effect. So that's going to be a lot lower than the AoE of the manual cast curse and the doom and stuff like that. So yeah, that's the reason why I chose to synth this chant. Movement speed, attack speed, higher overall negative to their resistances, and you're able to utilize just a lot of stuff that's just gonna inflict just like massive damage and utility for you while you are playing. So I really like that a lot better than the Black Sun Crest, but you could choose to use the Black Sun Crest. I'm just giving you all the options, and these are the two best options as far as the helm. One of the biggest things that you have to tackle, and I'm going to cover that number 2, is going to be the physical conversion to cold. We want to be converting all of our physical damage to cold. We've got this nice 40% physical damage converted to cold. You could do it without this, but there's no reason to. Like, there's literally no reason to. It would just be like making you prioritize harder to get mods on stuff that you don't want to be prioritizing it on. Like, if I was going to drop something, like if I was going to do hard crafts and have physical conversion to cold on 2 items, which right now I have it on 1. If I wanted to do 2 items and skip it on my Watcher's Eye, which Watcher's Eye is going to be the easiest way because it's super cheap to get a single stat Watcher's Eye that is physical converted to cold damage. It goes up to 40%. With the 40% in the tree, that can get you up to a potential 80%. And then it's really easy from there to then cap it out. The tier 1 on a quiver is going to give up to 25% converted to cold, but there's an even easier way. Well, there's actually 2 easier ways, which is through a glove craft. So this is the craft that I'd recommend for most people to start off with instead of trying to go into something like this right away. Obviously, if you can afford all of the equipment, knowing that in order to use this type of glove, you're going to have the conversion on your quiver, then yeah, go ahead. But for most people, probably not going to be the way to go. You can get it as an implicit, the Eater of Worlds, physical conversion to cold. I think exceptional is 25%. So 25%, like obviously you could do it at 20%, but at 20% it's going to be harder because you have to have a perfect roll on your Watcher's Eye, which obviously you could do, but that's not realistic. And the thing that you have to realize is all the damage that isn't converted isn't going to gain all those elemental bonuses. It's not going to gain all the cold increases, all that type of stuff. So if you're not converting 5% of your damage, you're basically losing like 5% of your total potential damage. So you absolutely need to be converting all the way. The other way that you can do it is we can use Veiled Chaos Orbs. One of the options that comes up on the Veiled Chaos Orb is physical conversion to cold. If it's through a Veiled Chaos Orb, it's 35%. So keep that in mind. That is an easy way to do it. The other option is we can do the craft on the bench. So the craft on the bench, you can't craft on if you already have it as an implicit, or maybe you can. Let's find out. I think you can. Should be able to. I've got 4 prefixes though. 1 second. Oh, why won't it give me non-full prefixes? Alright, there we go. Okay, so this is the way that you can get full conversion, is basically either using the implicit cold conversion and then 20 to 25 here. And using this influence is going to make it easy to craft that. So you could have a potential 60% conversion just on your gloves. That would make it so that you don't need Watcher's Eye, and you don't need the Watcher's Eye, you don't need the quiver. So obviously that is the way easier way to go, is to get exceptional physical conversion to cold, then do a chosen, because if you do the chosen, then it's 35% plus 25%, that's 60%. So then with the 40% conversion just in your tree, that's 100%. You're done with your conversion. That makes it a lot easier to craft, this quiver, for instance. Then I just have to get a really nice bottom, and then I can, focus craft the top, and I'm not having to have two things. Like, absolutely want physical as extra cold on the top of this. Like, I'm actually going to remake this one. I mean, this one's insane, but I'm actually going to remake this one because I want tier 1 physical damage as extra cold with tier 1 physical converted to cold. So that makes it a lot harder if you have these gloves. Obviously these gloves give a ton of damage, but it just makes it a lot harder on you. So this is probably going to be the option that I'm going to tell most people to go for. It does open up other places for you to get damage, like I said, the quiver, and then also you're going to be able to have just any Watcher's Eye that you want, which having the physical conversion with another good stat is way more expensive than just having a good stat that's a good stat. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. Obviously, you gotta weigh advantages, disadvantages of that. The frenzy charges are going to be really strong if you go with all of the same choices that I have, because that's what I'm doing. I'm stacking frenzy charges and then using the forbidden flame and forbidden flame and forbidden flesh for the avatar of the slaughter, which is obviously, you have 4% more damage and attack speed just from a frenzy charge. And then I'm also gaining 10% evasion, 10% attack damage, 4% movement speed, 4% attack speed for each one. So obviously, in that case, the frenzy charges are really strong. So if you plan on copying that, then obviously your end goal is going to be to get as many frenzy charges as you can. So that's probably going to be what your end goal would be, but obviously that's a lot harder to get to. Probably following the crafting video that I'll do for these is going to be a great way to start out, just so that you can get your build rolling. And you might just be like, this is OP as it is, why am I going to spend so much to change it? Okay, so we got that covered. I'm going to go ahead and talk through the rest of our jewels, since I kind of started in on that. I've actually covered 2 of them. My choice for the flame and the flesh is the avatar of the slaughter. The reason why is, even if you don't have extra frenzy charge, you're gonna have 5 frenzy charges just based on my tree. We get 1 frenzy charge here, we get 1 frenzy charge here. It just takes too many points to get over here for this one. Because we have like this long stretch, and the only thing that's really worth it is like this right here, but it's just too many points. That's the reason why I dropped that. You're better off just going double cluster. The other jewel that you're absolutely going to want is Brutal Restraint. Brutal Restraint gives us everything that we want. It gives us bonus attributes for our Omniscience. It gives us bonuses on each one of these, which, we have a lot of nodes that we're going to wind up picking up right in this area. The best things on the Brutal Restraint, there's 2 top tier things to go for. Onslaught on Kill, it's 8%. It's Onslaught on Kill for 8 seconds. That's a really nice thing to pick up. And then also Alchemist's Genius. Alchemist's Genius gives... It's 25% chance on... Go ahead, B. Up. Come on. Jump up. Come on. Up. She's got to ask permission to get up. Alchemist's Genius gives you 20% increased flask charges gained and 10% increase of your flasks. The way that I'm doing this, because like I said, mine's set up for mapping, is I have these on auto cast when full. So with these casting when full, the only one that I don't do it on is Bottled Faith, and you can't do it on Life Flask. So it's 3 of them spamming. The Alchemist Genius makes it so that you gain more flask charges, and then it also gives 10% increase to all of your flasks. So it winds up being a lot. I mean, like on the Bottled Faith, it gives me 15% crit chance, 1% increased damage that enemies take. So that's nice, and 4% increased damage. On the movement speed flask, I'm running tier 1 movement speed with the movement speed. So 10%, 5.4% movement speed. On the diamond flask, I'm doing that with also the tier 1 crit as a suffix. So 150% crit chance, 10% of that, it's like 15.4%, but 15% crit. And then the Taste of Hate, it's going to give us 22% less cold damage taken instead of 20, and it's going to give us an extra 1.5% physical damage taken as cold, and then it's also going to give us 1.5% of physical damage as extra cold. And then obviously it's increasing chance to avoid being chilled and frozen by 3% each. So the overall effect of it is like you look at one class and you're like, but the overall effect is pretty significant. I mean, just in this, I'm getting 30% crit, or 30% crit, 30% crit chance just from that. So that's pretty darn good. The other things to look on for these is we have increased elemental damage, projectile damage, attack and cast speed, and then physical as extra cold. Those are going to be the best choices, those 6 things. In order, Alchemists, Onslaught, if you don't have it somewhere else, that's going to be a top choice because 20% movement, cast, attack speed. So yeah, that's a top choice. Then physical is extra cold, attack, cast speed, elemental damage, projectile damage, tie is 5 and 6. So those are the things you're going to want to look for on them. They're super cheap. The way that I would suggest to do it is buying them and checking them one at a time like that is just going to take forever. Divine Orbs right now are super cheap. My suggestion would be to get 2 of the jewels, roll it, see what's on it, use Divine Orb on it, it re-rolls it, look at it, see what it's hitting in the circle. When you get it to hit, all good stuff. Keep that one. If you want to keep rolling, roll on the other one and just always keep your best one. So yeah. Oh, there's also increased aura effect of 8%. That one's actually really good too. If you're running a bunch of auras like I am in my build. Although in order to run 2 curses and the 1 aura, you either need a +1 curse also on your chest, and then use the same anointment that I have in order to run 5 auras and a banner, so 6 auras. In order to do that, you have to have the anointment for reduced reservation, even with the double reduced reservation nodes. Or you could do like the better increased effect ones, but you're talking about like small clusters that are probably like 20x. So I don't know. There are ways to do it, but increased aura effect, you're gonna have to see what it's actually gonna do to your character, see if that one's actually gonna be worthwhile in your build. So it's kind of gonna depend on what you're running. Okay, so another jewel that you're definitely gonna want to get is Unnatural Instinct right here. I mean, you can see how much it gives. 36% attack damage, 30% damage with bows, a total of 11% attack speed, 30% evasion, life leech, chance to avoid stun, increased life recovery, phasing, and some dex and int. So that's really strong also. That pretty much covers all of our unique jewels. As far as timeless jewels, the first one that you're going to want to get, this one's pretty much, this one is an absolute must. Feed the Fury, Fuel the Fight, Martial Prowess. You need one of these. The reason why is it just gives you a ton of damage. That's best in slots for damage is those 3. for this build. There just isn't anything that beats it, and it also gives us life leech and mana leech. So that's definitely going to be kind of like a required. You got to go for one. If this is a secondary, you want to pick up Stormrider. Stormrider gives us a power charge when we shock a chilled enemy. We're going to be shocking and chilling. Every enemy that you hit is going to be chilled. So when you shock enemies, which we've talked about the shocking mechanic, you also pick up percent chance to shock, and you can throw a little bit of lightning damage if you want to hitting some lightning damage. I kept lightning damage on one of my rings, just so that it's always on there. But yeah, so you're going to be shocking, and that node is going to be enough to max your power charges, which it only takes 1 point to go ahead and pick up another power charge. So 4 power charges, that's 160% crit chance. So having the power charge generation is important. You can pick this up on, you can pick up Stormrider on, what are they called? Forgetting the name. The Megalomaniacs, or there's another I forget which other one can you have Stormrider. There's one other medium, I think. I don't know. Maybe it might just be the Megalomaniac. I'm pretty sure it's on something else. But you can go with the cold one like I have. Obviously, the blanketed snow is really good. We already have exposure. If you didn't have exposure, you could go for corrosive elements. Like if you chose to go with the other helm, you could go for corrosive elements in there. That would be a choice. Got all the mark stuff. I don't know if I said on this. The percentage chance for the frenzy charge helps you on single target, or so when you're not able to pick them up from Blood Rage. If you don't use this, then you can wind up switching to the 25% increase effect of your marks. I can't remember if I said that or not, but just reiterating that. The increased aura effect and reduced reservation, these are important, or you won't be able to get in all the auras. Obviously, if you don't have an Enlightened level 4, you're not going to be able to have as many auras anyways. You could choose to do a different aura setup. I did 5 and then +1 Defiance Banner, just in its own slot because it has the lowest reservation. I'm running max precision for crit chance and accuracy. My accuracy is and I have increased effect on that, so it just picks up a lot of my accuracy and 100% hit chance. So yeah, that gives me a max hit chance, but without that, I would have to pick up more somewhere else. So yeah, my hit chance goes down to 82%. So yeah, I need that there. A good place to get accuracy is also right here. There's another variation to my links. I'll talk about the links. The links that I have set up for this video is what I'm going to suggest pretty much for just the general choices. There is another setup that's going to take more mana. I can run it, but especially if you don't have yet double reduced mana cost on your rings, you might run into issues. Well, you probably will run into issues unless you have a lot more unreserved mana than me. So I'll go ahead and talk about the choices on these. Awaken elemental damage, obviously the tornado shot, inspiration, awaken fork, greater multiple projectiles, and increased critical damage support. So the vicious projectiles is way more damage than inspiration. So if you can swap out inspiration for vicious projectiles, that will give you a lot more damage. That would be your max damage links. The issue with that is if I take out inspiration, my mana cost will go up by another 4, which, you know, that would be more magnified if, you know, I didn't have the negative 14 to the cost. So keep that in mind. You would need more open mana, because you have to have mana that's going to be available all the time to cast your defensive skill, and your my defensive skill is 26 mana, and then my curses, I believe, are like 38 on Frostbite. The Mark's more. Mark's 52. But since I'm getting mana back on hit and leech, it's still able to float. I wouldn't go any lower than I'm at, like 86. I wouldn't go lower than that, even with the doubles. If you don't have the double reductions, you're going to need more, because all of those things will cost more to cast. So that's the reason why I would say this is probably going to be the best link setup for everything. We can look at the damage. The damage is the only thing that the damage is actually better on for the tornado shot is switching the vicious projectiles. So I've already got it on here. So we've got the vicious projectiles. If I swap out inspiration, I'm at 6,091,000. So I swap out the inspiration for the vicious projectiles, I get quite a bit of damage increase, like over 10%. For everything else, it doesn't match up, so it's not worth swapping on anything else. The reason why you don't change greater, multiple, or forked, you could swap out, like, just for single target. You could swap fork for vicious projectiles. That would probably work, just busting like on top, point blank. But as far as like overall play, the setup that I would use is either Tornado, Awaken Elemental Attacks, Inspiration, Awaken Fork, Greater Multiple, and Increased Critical Damage. Increased critical damage wins against pretty much everything. As you can see, I swapped this for this. I'm down, you know, about 10% of my damage. You know, I can try to switch. Well, obviously that's not going to, because it doesn't show that damage. And vicious projectiles and awakened elemental damage, they're like literally almost the exact same. So, but inspiration's way less damage. Just flat out it is. If you can afford the mana cost and your build will function doing that, then definitely go for it. I'm gonna wind up switching. I'm gonna wind up switching it out because I can afford to do it. It's four extra mana, and I just added more life on hit and leech, so that I could do that because it is a good damage increase. The reason why you're not going to take out greater multiple projectiles is because this DPS that you're seeing, this is like the A hit DPS. So like if every time I shot I hit with one arrow, that's my damage. So obviously, you know, if I'm shotgunning 5 arrows, it's going to be like, if we count one hit from each one of those arrows, which, you know, in a single target situation, it's probably going to be at least that. Then it's going to be 5 times that damage. So if I use greater multiple projectiles, I've doubled my damage with that jewel slot. So the only way that anything else there would be better is if it was 100% damage increase, because I've doubled my projectiles. There's two times the amount of damage through just the number of projectiles. The way that fork works actually magnifies it even more, making it so that more projectiles is even more damage, because awakened fork is going to double shotgun, which means I fire the initial shots, and then those branch into and will fork when they hit into 2 more. Awakened fork makes it so that then there's an additional fork. So after those fork, it forks. So it's like fork, you know, 1 becomes 2, becomes 2 more. So starts as 1, goes 2, goes 4. So there's hits in all those situations. So essentially 5 projectiles when it hits would split to 10 and then to 20. Then you take and you add the multiple projectiles, it goes from 5 Now we have 10 projectiles. 10 projectiles splits to 20, which splits to 40. So total, a maximum total of 70 initial projectiles. And then at the end of that, you have you have the secondary projectiles, which starts off as 3, but if you have the enchantment, then it's 4. So it's a lot of extra projectiles. As far as map clearing, it's more projectiles. It also like spreads as it gets away from you, so it just kind of like waves out. And then we also have chain on top of that for our ascendancy. It just completely obliterates maps, which obviously in a speed mapper you want it to be able to just branch out and destroy everything. So yeah. I really like that. There are other setups that I like. I like playing Aeronova in the Timeless Conflicts. It's pretty fun, especially if I'm doing it solo, because I can just sit in the middle in Aeronova, and the way that Aeronova works, it like spreads out. It's the only place I really like it the most. It is pretty fun in maps too. It spreads so much that if you can get used to the timing on dropping the arrows, that can be really fun. Also, just switching, pulling out fork and just running multiple projectiles and point blanking stuff with the vicious projectiles, that works good too. But yeah, all the other setups, I've pretty much tried all of them, and the ones that I like the most are the ones that I've just described. The top goal one being Tornado, basically removing inspiration, adding vicious. This would be the top pick. Okay, so we got those talked through. Blood Rage, my auras, Hatred, Herald Ice, Precision, Herald Purity, Determination. You could go Evasion, or you could go Determination. I like Determination. I like the armor stack just because it reduces the physical hits that you take. I'm actually running Steel Skin with cast on damage taken. The reason why is because Steel Skin can get used with cast on damage taken. I could run Vol Molten Shell, put it on auto cast for my movement, and then have the Vol Molten Shell up for casting. If I wanted to become tankier, I could also swap out flasks. I could take and remove Bottled Faith, and the Diamond Flask. My crit chance would drop a lot, but I could throw in a flat evasion and a flat armor, and that would just spike the crap out of my defenses. That would definitely be an option. You could put both of those on auto cast at full, so they'd just be up all of the time. If your build feels too squishy, I would suggest doing that, but then you're going to need to make up for it with more crit chance. Like, I'll probably wind up doing that. What I'm thinking I might do is add some more base crit, just to be at 100%, and then maybe swap out my my Diamond Flask. That's one change that I might make. Bottled Faith is kind of hard to get away from. The only reason why I might take it out is because I don't really use it very much. Like, I pop it on bosses and stuff like that, but I'm at the point where my damage is so much that it's, I don't know, kind of hard to take away. I might even get rid of my Life Flask if I can get immunity to bleed. That's a possibility also. But I don't like dying, so I like having the instant health on Flask. I wind up running Soul of Rizlatha, so I gain the extra Flask charges, and then 60% increased recovery on low life when used on low life. Then I use instant recovery when on low life. So it's 60% increased on top of that. It's like it's full healing. So I could be at 0 and go to 100 when I'm on low life, which is at 50% or below. So instant heals. I really like that. And then I also have Cannot Be Frozen. I'm using Soul of Brine King with Challenger, Lightfoot, and then the base one. Basically, stun block recovery. Can't be stunned twice in a row. Reduced effective chill, and Cannot Be Frozen. So that's pretty awesome. And with the combination of that I don't have to worry about cold effects pretty much. Very little effect. Can't be frozen, but very small effect can hit me from chilling. So I like that setup also. Um, that's how I like it. The kind of the fill-in spots. You have two fill-in spots, or a couple fill-in spots, or one of my designated fill-in spots is the boots. The reason why I go with this influence is because we can get physical as extra cold as an implicit, more movement speed because I want the movement speed, and as you can see, I've just gone for a lot of movement speed on these. I got some attributes, and then this is where I picked up my resistances. I did need to cap out over my resistances. So I've got three places that I've got three stat places that I have resistances on. But if you don't need them, just go for attributes and big movement speed. You could do a chosen and go for the movement speed plus onslaught. That would be really good, or the movement speed plus movement speed. That would be another good choice. But physical is extra cold and movement speed as implicits with 6 strong stats, and they're easier to craft. That's a pretty sweet deal. I'll do a video on crafting these because this is one of those, like everyone should just make a pair, at least to start out. Even if you're going to wind up going for double of the older influences, like if you want to get more increased effect on your tailwind, or you want to pick up elusive, those would be choices also. So yeah, I think that's a lot of this stuff. Rings are pretty much going to be try to stack big attributes. You can see on mine, I did this physical as extra fire. This is really hard to do and really expensive, so if you're going to try to go for something like this, you should probably do it last. Because you have to spam. What makes it really hard is you're spamming the top for the physical as extra fire, which adds about like 4 to 5% total damage. These buying in bulk are going to get really expensive really fast, and then you have to either just spam it till you hit two or three good attribute rules, and then you have to have an open prefix slot, or you're doing harvest crafting with prefixes blocked, so that could get really expensive. I'd probably say start off, just try to get really high attributes on the bottom. It's a great place to pick them up. That's kind of what I did. Is first I went for high attributes on my ring, on my rings. I mean, we're not going to even talk about this one because I mean, if you can afford the +1 frenzy base for the ring, then you can probably just go and do whatever you want with it. Headhunter is obviously going to be the best choice if you're planning on making a speed mapper. Nothing is going to match it. If you're doing bossing, obviously Mage Blood is better for that. But if you can't afford a Headhunter or a Mage Blood, then what you're probably going to want to do is either one of two choices. If you want to go for damage, probably a Redeemer belt is going to be a good way to create a nice belt. Basically get yourself an 86 Steigen, buy a Redeemer's Orb. It's probably going to be the cheapest way to do it because I think Redeemer's Orbs are probably like less than half an EX. Then you just add the influence to, so I have one, 81C, so half an EX. 81C, get yourself an 86 Steigen belt, then you can add the Redeemer influence to it, and then you could use cold and prismatic fossils to try to get on elemental attack damage with skills, cold damage to chilled, cold damage percent, and then the other top choices would be, the other way to go would be attributes on the bottom. You could start off crafting attributes once it's already Redeemer, and then you could block suffixes once you have your high attributes, and then you could do cold, more cold, to try to get on 2 more % colds, and then finish with craft life, or if you have space, or craft on percent elemental damage with attack skills. That would be a good way to make a huge elemental damage with lots of attribute belt. That's what I would suggest, unless you just want more life. More life, you could start with a Stygian, use Hunter or Elder Stygian. Then just use, if you wanted more life, go Pristine Fossils till you hit the percent life with a high life. Then you could use Fertile Catalyst to add 20% to that, so you could have 12% life, increased life, and up to 118, I think, life. So that would be a good choice. You could even go, if that's the way that you're going to go, you could go Hunter, Elder, Leather Belt, because the 40 implicit life, so that would give you, 48 life in your implicit. Obviously, a really strong like really good rolls on a Stygian with a really good Abyssal Jewel is going to wind up being stronger, because like it has 4 stats on it, and a 1 can be 40 life, so that's that's going to wind up being stronger. And it's a great place to pick up. Can't be affected by Corrupted Blood. That was actually what I was running without the Headhunter. I don't have my belt anymore. I gave it to someone. He's got my Abyssal Jewel too. So yeah, that would be my suggestion there. Now let's talk about weapons. So you want really high physical damage. That's #1 priority. Obviously, if it's like this, you have to decide what it is that's the most important on the bow. Big physical damage is going to affect how much damage you're going to do, how much your effects are going to apply. So you want high physical damage. The cool thing is that with the gem setups, it would be cool, if you have additional projectiles on your bow, but realistically, just having really high stats, like really high physical, and then having, like crit chance, multiplier, and attack speed are probably going to wind up actually giving you more damage. The reason why is because if you already have 10, well, what's the ratio? So I'm at 422. So 38 would be it'd be almost 10%. It would be pretty close, but 2 extra projectiles might beat out multiplier. 10 projectiles, probably by a little bit. But no, it's the damage over. It would be the damage over all the 10 projectiles already versus. Yeah, it would be 20% more. So maybe not 2 projectiles. But it would be pretty close. It'd be real close. So, but the main thing is you want to get a high PTPS. There is really good stuff that you can get. You can get additional fork if you go into like the influence ones. You can get additional fork, additional chain. You can get the 2 additional projectiles if you're looking for utility. That comes on any of them, but I'm talking about other things. They also have on Crusader, you can get percent of physical as random element. This would serve double because it would wind up giving you increased shocks, but then it would also like rotate. Like I said, 10% is about, I think, a 4.5% increase on my build to total damage. So, that node, not counting for the increased shock, which, like I said, my average is like between 7 and 13, but minimum being 7. So if you were to add, another 15% or another 15%, essentially that would be adding like 6% more damage, and then it should also be magnifying the shock value by 1.5 times, so I should be winding up at around like a 17% min shock. So that would be a lot of damage. So that's something that would also be really good. But the first thing is just to go for try to get a good damage. You can probably pick up like 400 or 500 PDPS pretty cheap. You start getting over that, well, depending on the base that you're on. Best bases, hands down, are going to be spine bow or thicket bow. Spine bow is gonna have just it's gonna have a higher hit value, but the thicket bow is gonna be attacking faster. So it's like attack speed versus higher base crit. The spine bow is really popular, which kind of didn't make sense to me because what a lot of people are using the spine bows for were for brittle builds, which like if you're playing cold damage, like you should be capping like really easily. So I don't know why you'd go with a higher base crit chance bow. That doesn't really make sense to me. But anyways, one of those two would be really good. That's what I would look for. Obviously, I chose the thicket bow. I wanted the higher attack speed. That's the option I went for, and I knew I could cap out crit or come very close. Right now, 98.01, 6.69 attacks per second. What I wanted to show is I have this. This isn't like picking up one of these really cheap to start off with. Honestly, wouldn't be that bad. The cool thing is because it gives you frenzy charge generation, and then it like shotguns when you're at max frenzy charges, adds multiplier. So it's half the damage of my bow, which what I wanted to show you is that's essentially going to give you half the damage. So that's how important the physical damage is. Obviously, this one's also at 1.5 attack speed. So it's like half the damage. So I just kind of wanted to show that the physical damage is really important. So even if you're only able to start off with something that has good physical damage, like a good range, obviously, I mean, if you can afford to, jump right into, a 700 plus PDPS bow with, perfect crit. But if you can't, there should be like tons of like if we take, you see downscale this to like 550. Let's see. So 550, you're in like there's there's not very many. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 under 10 EX. So if we go down to 500, I bet you that number's gonna drop drastically. Yeah. So we got some like getting down to like 1 EX now. So my point is like you can get something that's 75% of what I have pretty cheaply. It's once you start getting, obviously, like it looks like around like 550 it starts spiking up a lot, and then from there, because that's basically the difference between like very small differences in the bow, that's when you start getting into the really expensive stuff. But my point is you could pick up something pretty nice. I mean, 500 DPS or even 450 is going to be more than that bow that I was just showing you. And if you get it on a thicket bow base, it's going to have a higher attack speed. So it's gonna do good damage. And so my point is that people are like, oh, physical is so much more expensive. It's really not. You basically just have to be willing to take something that's a little bit lower. Start off with something that's decent, and then obviously work your way up on crafting those. I will do a crafting video on how to make some bows. I really like crafting bows, so I'll definitely be willing to make a video on doing that. Like I'm just trying to make a nicer and nicer bow. So this is one that I'm working on right now. 603 without the attack speed on it. But I'm trying to hit something really hard on the bottom on this one. But the top's already like perfect, so now I'm working on the bottom. Because you can get fork on that one, you can get the physical as extra, but they can get really expensive. They can get really expensive to craft. Like right now I could just throw attack speed on that, and that's probably what, based on what we were looking at, 600. Yeah, a minimum of like 5. I throw attack speed on it. throw attack speed on it, it's probably, 20, 40, 50 EX. But the point is I'm trying to make something better. So, if you're willing to settle on some points, obviously, if you absolutely have to have +2 projectiles and stuff like that, with having that really high physical damage, that's going to wind up being really, really expensive, and you have to have realistic expectations about, what it is that you want. So that's the reason I'll put it this way. Physical damage, crit chance, attack speed. Like, those would be, like, really good to have. Like, if you can have a decent crit chance, a good physical damage, and some attack speed, that is going to take you really far. So that's pretty much it. Covered pantheons, flasks. Basically, if you want to be on the tankier side, you could rotate some of these flasks out. As far as getting, I need to talk about armor because I didn't talk about armor. So the armor that I'm using explodes. I started off with elevated explodes, elevated percent life. This is really expensive to craft. And there's lots of chances for you to fail on this where you wind up having to basically start over. Just getting the explodes to try to elevate it, just trying to get the tier 1, is pretty expensive. I spent about 10 EX just getting it to that point. Once I had that elevated, then obviously your awakening orbing together, the 2 elevated mobs. The safe way for me to do it was to go percent life elevated with the explodes. That way I'm guaranteed some life, because my life is pretty low. I'm not having issues surviving in pretty much any content, but I wanted to guarantee some life on there. Ideally, I'd have more life there. I'd have the dual mod life also if I had gotten an open suffix, but I spent so much to get to this point. I'm not going to risk completely ruining the item to try to get one stat off. So then once you have your top done, it's pretty simple. If you just want the base crit, you can do prefixes cannot be changed, and then you can use harvest to slam an attack mod. Attack mod slam will guarantee that you get the base crit. You have an equal chance to get tier 1 or tier 2. So if you miss, you could take and do it again. The probability is after 2 tries that you'll hit the tier 1. My suggestion for a starter chest, is not to do this unless you have a ton of currency. Even if you have a ton of currency, having something to be able to play in is probably going to be the smartest thing to start out on, unless you can just buy one of these. If you can just buy one and you can afford it, then sure, go for it. But unless you just have kind of like close to unlimited currency, I would probably craft something that you can use first. My suggestions for something that you can use first: easiest, cheapest for the strength, do a hunter base, like get a 6-link, whichever's cheaper, either buying a 6-link hunter base or buying a 6-link and adding the hunter influence to it, or buying a base, 6-linking, whatever works for you. That's going to depend on what's on the market. You might have to link it yourself, but basically hunter influence and use pristine fossils. This is a cheapish craft that will be really, really strong. Get your 6-link, put hunter influence on it, do pristine fossils till you hit the percent life with high number life, like tier 1 or tier 2 basically, but you want tier 1% life with the tier 1 or tier 2 number to number life. So then you'll have like 120 life or 119, 129 plus the 12% increased life. If you have an open slot on there, there's 2 ways you can do it. To make it really nice as far as life and defenses, you could take a multi-mod, prefixes cannot be changed, craft on a blocker mod on the top so it doesn't get filled, then craft on, multi-mod, prefixes cannot be changed, craft on a blocker on the top. Then do the harvest, roll for attacks, because essentially it'll cost you 2 EX for the multi-mod, 2 EX for the prefixes can't be changed, and then you just craft on whatever the cheapest thing is. So 4 EX a roll. Since it's a 50-50 chance on you hitting tier 1 or the tier 2 base crit, I would just do that, because then, you know, realistically you're looking at probably 80 EX for those slams, and then what you wind up with is you wind up with 20% life chest, 8% mana, 100 and something number life, and then you also have the base crit. If it comes out with just the base crit, you could then multi-mod it, craft on, you know, dual mod life, and then, you know, something else on the bottom, or you could just slam it. Like slam 2 stats or multi-mod. That's kind of the choice there. I'd probably just slam it twice. But that would be a really, really strong chest, because it would give you a lot of defenses, and it would give you that base crit that you need. The other choice that you could do is you could just go for an elevated base crit, which would make it much easier for you to hit that, you know, close to 100% or 100% crit chance. So that would be a really good option that I would suggest as a cheaper option. For a chest. I mean, or you could just do like a 6-link Hyri's Ire till you can craft something, or till you're happy with it. Another choice is with the Hunter. You wanted to go a little bit more. If you craft pristine fossils till you have percent life and high life with an open prefix, then you can do you can chance it. This is a chance because there's caster mods on the bottom, but it would be a 50-50 again. You block prefixes cannot be changed, then craft on you craft on prefixes cannot be changed, and then slam it with caster. If it selects top, then it will give you +1 to curse on the top. Then you'd have percent life, number to number life, +1 curse. And then on the bottom, then you just block prefixes again, because now your top's full. And then you do the attack slam through harvest, which attack slam, once again, then you're 1 out of 2. So, and then it only would cost you 2 EX because you've already filled up your top. So those would be the 2 ways you could go about it. More life or the extra curse. That would be a way that you could get an extra curse on your chest, so then you could not need to craft on Whispers of Doom if you don't have, you know, a corrupted plus curse. So I think that was the last thing. We talked about boots, talked about belts, talked about gloves, talked about bows, rings. Basically focus on attributes or whatever stats you need, and then negative to your casting cost. Those are the important things. Quiver, it can be the place you can get your conversion, or it could be your gloves. Choice in the helm, I'm going to say Asynth's Chant is best. We looked at the clusters. The only other clusters to think about is going to depend on your gem links. These are basically reduced reservations. Obviously, if you choose to not go with as many auras, you'd have extra points here. These could be things that you don't add until you're a higher level. So if you're to remove these, you could remove an aura, and then you'd be able to run this build at a lower level, essentially the same, just minus an aura, which, you know, that would be a cheaper, easier way to do it without having to be a higher level. There are other places you could pull points out, but that's pretty much it. If I missed anything and you have questions, please leave a comment. I'm sure other people will have questions. Anyways, that's pretty much it. I'll have a bunch of crafting videos coming out soon. Thanks for watching. If you're not yet, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. If you like this video, hit the like button or share it. Thanks for watching. Peace.